This is Office Talk with Annette Stepanian. Welcome back to another episode of Office Talk. In last week's episode, I talked all about how to gear yourself up for Q4 planning. Because you know you have your mind on 2019 already, or if not, it'll be here before we know it. In this episode, I'm talking with systems expert Chelsea Foster about how creatives can and should develop systems and set goals that resonate with them and their personalities. Chelsea is the host of the Burnout Proof Your Biz podcast, and she spends her days coaching others through setting up systems that work in their business, which is why I thought she'd be a great guest for you guys. Because I know how it is to get inundated with the day-to-day, and in fact, that's something that I'm currently struggling through and trying to move past in my own business. Chelsea's going to dive into how to audit what you're doing now to help finish off the year strong and then start off next year on a high note. So with that said, let's dive into my conversation with Chelsea B. Foster. Well, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here and for taking the time to share with us all the beauty that is in your head about processes and systems and how to get organized in our businesses so that we could achieve the goals that we have set out for ourselves. So before we dive in, can you just give us a little bio of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I am Chelsea B. Foster, and that's the name of my business as well. And I help other small creative business owners, specifically in the wedding industry and those that are in the graphic design and web design industries, really organize their business. Most of my clients are on the edge of burnout. They are feeling overwhelmed and completely stressed out by everything that they're trying to do, and they're bogged down in the day-to-day. And so what I do is I come in and I help them organize their business, figure out which systems they need to be using, and then we can help them get rid of some things off their plate, figure out what things they need to be paying attention to, and how to streamline, automate, and even delegate some of those things if that is what they are wanting to do.
That's amazing. I need one of you.
Yeah. You actually don't. I don't think you're really organized already.
Yeah, but I feel like there's always room for improvement. And I think it's always important to question why you're doing something and to evaluate whether or not you need it or not.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And I actually recommend most of my clients to do either at least once a year or every 6 months do an audit of their systems just to see a check-in. Is this still working for me? Do I need to change something? And I don't recommend doing it more frequently than that because then you'll run the risk of having shiny object syndrome and hopping on every new bandwagon.
Yes.
Yeah. But I do think that it is something that is valuable is to just take that moment and check in and see, is this still working for me or do I need to make a change?
Yes. So I think a lot of people have strong feelings about systems in their business. If they're like you and me, they love it. They have systems and processes and checklists for every part of their life.
Yes.
But what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about systems and just kind of getting organized in this sense when it comes to your business?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest misconceptions is actually that people think that they are constricting and that they are going to confine your creativity. And what I have found, both in my research, in my own business, and with my clients, is that the systems actually help set some boundaries and give you structure for the things that are draining and aren't as creative, so that when you do have creative time, you can fully let yourself explore that creativity instead of having 1,000 things on your to-do list and bogging up your mind with all of the CEO type level tasks that aren't maybe as creative, that are more mundane and day-to-day. So that is a huge misconception about systems.
Yeah, and in fact, I think it, like you said, it opens up the space because you're clearing your head of all the did I make sure to update this web page or whatever, or
Exactly.
did I send this invoice? It just it just clears that up so that you don't have to worry about it in the middle of the night. Did I forget this one little detail?
Exactly. Or even if you're out, let's say that you take an afternoon off. A lot of my clients, when they first come to me, they're like, I tried to take an afternoon off and I just couldn't. I was on my phone the entire time. And I just look at them and I say, wait 6 weeks. And when we're done, you will be able to take a week off or a weekend or a afternoon off and not look at your phone if you want to. And they do. Like they're able to, I had one client, she took two vacations, week-long vacations this summer, and did not reply to emails while she was on vacation. Like didn't even reply to my emails, which I was like, thank you. You are amazing. Like I am so proud of you right now. But yeah, so it does give you that structure so that the free time feels a lot better and you actually can be present in those free moments.
Yeah. So are you actually setting up systems, or are these systems and processes that then get delegated to somebody else, or is it some combination?
It's a combination. So I have both done for you services where I come in and I actually set up the service for you. But more often than not, I do coaching. And so with the coaching, we come in and we actually talk about your systems and we figure out, okay, what systems should you be using? What is the best workflow for you? A lot of times people do want that step of helping them get organized first, and then we put it into the system.
Okay. So then they can go on vacation for 2 weeks and not worry that their whole business is going to fall apart.
Exactly. And then the setup part is completely up to the client. If they want me to set it up, that we can always add on setups, or if they want to take it over and do it themselves, which I do encourage them to set it up themselves, then they can do that as well.
Great. So last week's episode of Office Talk was all about setting yourself up for success in Q4 and how to reach those year-end goals. You know, we're kind of only a few months out before 2019 comes rolling in.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Crazy. I know. I feel like every month I'm like, oh, I can't believe it's September. I can't believe it's, August. Like it's just,
I know.
Oh, where did the year go? So what are some things that people should have in place to make sure that their Q4 is successful and sets them up for success in 2019?
Yeah, so you gave me a preview of that episode, and I think that everything that you mentioned in your episode is spot on. You definitely need those things. If you haven't listened to that episode, definitely go back and listen to it. But Annette touches on a lot of key elements more on the mindset and support side that are incredibly important to setting you up for a successful quarter, whether it's Q4 or not. And then I would add on to that you do actually need to set some goals. They don't have to be, if goals is a very restrictive term to you, you don't have to call it a goal. But you do need to know where you're going so that you can make a plan to get there. And I think that's one thing that people forget to do is to make that plan. And it doesn't have to be super specific. I'm okay with you just saying, okay, here are like 2 or 3 milestones that I want to hit in order to get to that final goal. So you definitely need a goal and a plan to get there. And then I also think that you need to spend some time really visualizing, and I think you touched on this in your episode, Annette, but you need to spend some time visualizing what it is that you want. Because a lot of people forget what they actually want. And they get stuck in, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. I should be using this system. I should be doing this. I should be sending out an email list. I should be going to wedding fairs. I should be doing all of these things that don't actually give you results, and you're not seeing a return on that either time or financial investment. So take a step back. And Q4 is a great time to do this, to take a step back and really assess what it is that you want out of your business and what you want to achieve with the rest of the year, and then go get it. Forget all the other stuff and let it all just sit. If it's really important, you can come back to it in Q1. But especially in Q4, I highly recommend taking a few risks and just like letting yourself be you in your business.
Yeah. Yeah, really good advice. I think I feel like Q1, everybody is just so excited to get going, to like, it's the new year. They feel like they have a fresh slate. And then like 2 and 3, sometimes people might kind of slow down, it's summertime. And then at the end of the year, there's this like panic of like, I got to make up for lost time. And I think it's also important to like readjust your goals and reassess as well.
Absolutely.
Something I don't plan out more than even when I say plan, it's very loose. Like in terms of my goals, it's like 6 months out. That's what I do, just because it's really hard for me sitting in, 2018, for example, to envision what all of 2019 is going to look like. So like the first 6 months, I might have like a more detailed plan. And then the last 6 months, it's very high level. Just like, I think I'm going to do this here and there. And then as I move through the year, it all kind of starts to fall into place in terms of like, okay, well, what am I going to be doing in November now that I know where I've been the last few months? So
exactly. And I think that a lot of times when we talk about setting goals, a lot of the advice out there is to get super, super specific and like plan out, okay, week 1, I'm going to be doing this. Week 2, I'm going to be doing this. Week 3, I'm going to be doing that. And for someone like me that is a little over planny, I get really caught up in like, if I miss a deadline or one of those weeks don't go exactly as planned, I get really stuck and I beat myself up over having missed that and that I need to catch up and make up time. And that's just really not possible. We all only have 24 hours in a day, and it's not really possible to get that much more done, especially because I am an overplanner and I always overestimate what I can get done.
yeah.
But yeah, so I think that having the flexibility and giving yourself that grace of, okay, this is the general idea of where I'm going, and then letting the pieces fall into place is absolutely an amazing thing that you do.
Yeah. But then having said that, you do need a little fire under your butt too.
You do.
If
you're the type of person that is sitting there and you're like, I always write goals, and when I get to the end of the month or to the end of the quarter, nothing has happened, you should maybe try writing out, okay, week 1, I need to be doing this. Week 2, I need to be doing this. And then try it for a couple months and see if that works for you. I just know for me, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So then how do you help clients walk through this? So let's say somebody like comes to you and is like, kind of feels like they're all over the place. Like, what's like the first step that you guys work through?
So the first thing that we do is we actually take a mini audit. And so we just feel into how they're feeling about their business. So what are the things that they are liking? What are the things that they're hating? What are the things that are stressing them out? What are the things that are keeping them up overnight or all night? And then we take a step back and we look at their mission and their vision statement. And I always love to have my clients come back to this because those are very powerful tools that I think we forget to use.
Yeah.
And so when we take our mission and vision statement, we go back to that list of things that they're stressing out about. And I ask them, does this thing help you further your mission or your vision? And if it doesn't, do you still want to keep it on your list, or can we let go of it?
Yeah.
And a lot of times they let go of it. So that's the first step, is just like figuring out what all they need to be doing in accordance with their mission and vision. And that actually cleans up their goal list a lot, because we all have a ton of ideas. Especially if you're an entrepreneur, you are probably an idea person. So your brain dump list for project ideas, I'm sure, has like 50 things on it at least.
Yeah.
And so taking your mission and vision and actually using those to help you frame those questions and a lens to evaluate them lets you decide, okay, what are these projects that I should be working on and which ones should I not be working on? These are not great fits for my business right now.
Yeah.
And then that helps you whittle down your list so much.
Yeah. Have you read Traction, the book?
I haven't yet. I think it's on my husband's bookshelf, though. I'm pretty sure he's read it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people they talk about like Traction is so helpful because he makes you kind of go through. I think he calls it the entrepreneur's operating system, and then like the first step is to like develop a vision, which I don't know, when you say vision and mission, I don't know how many of us really have a vision statement and a mission statement. So that could be your step one, is to like kind of develop that, and then like you kind of go through, and then based on that vision statement you develop like rocks in your business. And it's really helpful. It's a helpful book because he kind of goes through like the first step, and then he gives you an exercise to do, and then you do the second step, and then from like, you know, from your rocks, like you have to create measurables and all these things. So it kind of creates a nice way. It's a nice exercise to do, to clarify these things for yourself if you haven't ever taken the time to write that vision statement.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So Did you have more to say? I feel like you're like, and then we're gonna. There's
Yeah.
our next
So then,
step. Yeah.
so after we do that, we dive into, okay, let's create a plan for you. And I actually look at their learning style, their productivity style, and we try to figure out, okay, what is going to be manageable for them? Because for me, lists everywhere make me feel better and make me feel like I can accomplish it. But for other people, having that list that has everything on it, that's very overwhelming. And so for some people, we'll take the overview and that's their list and they can fill in the details themselves, or they have the details somewhere else, like in a Google Doc that is not in a checklist form. So I really do pay attention to their learning and their productivity styles to help them figure out what is the best method for them.
Nice. And then you also, I guess, also have to think when you do bring on people, to help you, you also have to think about their styles and like what works for them.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes. Yeah. So if anyone has a team, we also look at all of that as well, especially if they have an employee on their team. If it's a contractor, not so much because,
I know.
Not it. Yeah. I'm sure you will touch on contractor relationships on here. I know you have in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
But it's still useful to know.
If they have an employee, we definitely consider the employee and how that employee learns, because that will affect the overall business systems that you're using for the entire team.
Yeah, and just like how people like to receive information and feedback. I mean, there's so many tests. I feel like every day someone's talking about this like new personality test you need to take in order to understand how like people on your team interact with one another.
Yes.
Are there any that you like?
Oh my gosh.
Which ones do you like?
So I really love the one on 16personalities.com. It's basically just the Myers-Briggs personality test. But it's super fast. It takes like, 5-10 minutes to take the test.
Yeah.
And it gives you so much detail. And it's free. So I really love that one. There's one about the colors. So what color are you? And that is very insightful too. Especially if you're working on a team. You can see kind of what everyone's colors are. And that helps you determine kind of what their personality is. And it goes back to how they want to receive and give information. And then there's another one that is, I don't even know if this is a formal one or just one that one of my teaching colleagues created, but it's the different direction, the cardinal direction, so north, east, south, and west. And I'm pretty sure it's very similar to the colors where it kind of gives you your personality style, but we used it when I was a teacher in determining what the groups were going to be. If we had like a really important project and we wanted all the groups to be balanced, we would make all the students take that test and then we would form the groups from that.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like I have like a folder in my computer with like all my like self-assessments. I like the Strengths Finder one. That one was really like interesting because I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Yes. Definitely love the love languages for any relationship. Oh, yeah. I've taken the Enneagram. I haven't really like dug into the results. I was a little overwhelmed by that. And then have you done it? Yet. Yeah, I did it. My husband and I both. I knew my husband was for me because like the first week I made him take the love language test, and just the fact that he was game for it, I was like, he's my kind of guy. But I always always asking him, do you want to take another personality test? So he took the Enneagram with me, and then I just heard about the Colby test. Someone I know was just raving about it, and so I looked it up. I haven't done that one yet, but there's there's a lot. There's
so many.
Yeah, it's kind of like reading your horoscope a little bit.
There is. My husband, his company actually, I think every employee, at the very least, all the managers took some test. And it returned like a 50-page document on him. Yeah. And I was like, this is spot.
This is like an instruction manual to your husband. Did you get so you got a copy?
Yeah, I did. He like read it all to me. He was like, does this sound like me? Does this sound like me?
That's so funny. Yeah. I think it's enlightening. I always take them with a grain of salt, but I think there's certain things that it just explains why you are the way you are. I remember like at the firm, we took one about communication, and I'm very chatty. Like I like to, before I dive into the work, I'm like, I like to take time and see how you are, how your weekend was.
Yep.
And the partner I worked for was very succinct. Like he was very efficient with his words, just get to the point. And I remember once we took that, that assessment or the class, whatever it was a workshop. I was like, oh, I need to just get to the point when I talk to him. Because I was like, hey, how's it going? How's your weekend? And he just was looking at me like, and get to the point.
Like, why are you asking me this?
Yeah,
like,
whereas to
you're
me... You're
wasting my time.
Yeah, when you get to the point, to me, it feels rude, right? Like,
Right.
It feels like, don't you want to know how I'm doing? But
Right.
Anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. So, what do you think is the one must-have system or workflow if someone wants to be successful in business next year?
Oh man, the one. I would say the most important one for you to have, especially if you are planning on scaling, is to have your inquiry and onboarding process nailed. That way you make an excellent first impression right from the beginning. So the moment they get to your website, all the way through them hiring you, signing the contract, and getting onboarded to start whatever project you're working on, that entire workflow can set the tone for your relationship with your clients. And it can make or break those inquiry processes. So whether a client decides to sign with you or not. I think that is definitely the most important one for 2019.
Yeah, that's what brings the money in. It was funny. I was just talking to a friend, and I was looking to hire a contractor. So I got a list of recommended folks. I sent out emails, filled out their little forms, and I think I sent out 6. Only one of them got back to me. And I was like, these are people who came recommended, and I even put like so-and-so recommended you. And I was like, either I said something in my email that like I did not make their filter, right? Or they don't have a system in place, because to me, you always at least respond. I'm not the best. Sometimes it takes me a few days to respond, but I try really hard to at least respond to people.
Yeah. And you have that automatic, your out of office message that tells them you did receive it and you will be responding.
Yeah, I don't have that on right now. I should probably go back and turn it on.
Oh, you should turn it on. I love that when I get it from people. Yeah, I'm just like, oh, okay, I know it made it.
You made it.
Even if it didn't, if I don't get a response for like 3 or 4 days, I'm more likely to be forgiving than if I don't get that response.
Interesting. I should try, because a few people have commented. They're like, oh, I really like that I get that. And I'm like, I turned it off because I thought it was maybe annoying to people. So I should turn it. I'm going to go turn it back on right after this episode.
Yeah, no, I have a couple of my clients that have a 48 to 72 hour response time. And I tell them, you need to tell people that. Just be upfront about it. It's totally fine. Like, no one cares, but you just need to let them know that you did receive their email and that you will be responding in however long.
Yeah.
And I think for inquiries, that is especially important because, like you said, you had 5 people not respond to you, just like completely ghost your email. And so you don't even know, like, did it make it to their inbox or what?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it gives like an interesting, you're right, it gives a different impression. And so I ended up going with the person I ended up hiring was somebody I wanted to hire anyway, but it was good because it worked out where I was like, wow, and they have their act together too, so that made me feel really good that, like, if they, again, like you said, it leaves such a good impression where I'm like, wow, if at this point in the game they're so organized, that to me means that whether it's true or not, that they're going to be organized when they're actually doing the work and delivering the work as well. And so far, I've been really impressed at their
Exactly.
I think communication is so important.
Yes,
yeah,
it totally is, especially for online businesses, because that is the only way that we can talk to each other is by having the communications online. So if you're able to communicate very well and frequently, then that helps.
Yeah, and then I think especially, like, I know you serve the wedding industry, right? A lot of couples they're getting quotes from a lot of different people, right?
Yes.
They're not just going to one planner. They're contacting maybe 8 planners. And so, again, it's that impression that you're creating. And I always say, in a competitive market, you want to use every advantage as possible. And I think being professional and being responsive is a competitive advantage.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, I have another question.
Yeah.
Now, everyone is always like, oh, you got to get your systems down on paper. And there's obviously like so many things that we do that we don't even realize
Right.
is in our heads. It's just a process, right?
Yes.
Where do you begin? Because it can be very daunting to say, okay, I'm going to get all this stuff down in my head, and you do so much in your business. Like, what do you advise your clients? Like, where do you advise them to start?
So I, first of all, tell them this is a process. It is not going to happen overnight. This is not a project that you block off a whole week for. This is not something that you say, okay, I'm going to get this done in 48 hours. That you will fail like every single time, and you're going to be completely overwhelmed. So what I suggest instead is, as you are working on a project, just keep a notebook next to your computer and jot down what you're doing. It doesn't have to be super specific, just enough to jog your memory so that later when you are ready to write it down in whatever system you decide to use, whether that's Google Docs, Asana, Trello, whatever you decide, then you have that paper record right there for you. And you didn't have to take any extra time to think about it because you were writing it down as you did it. And I do this for every system. As I'm doing it, you just jot down notes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it could take up to a month to get that done, and that's totally fine. Like, it's a process, and if you get one done this week, amazing. Like that, you are 1,000 times ahead all the other companies around you.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I've started doing is certain tasks. See, I'm not very systematic with my system creations, but one thing I do is I create videos. And
Yes.
I'll talk to like what I'm doing, and then I save those videos so that they can then hopefully get transcribed by somebody who is a systems person and can turn it into an SOP document.
Absolutely, yes.
But as I'm doing a task, I figure I'm doing it anyway. Let me just document it, at least in video.
Yeah.
Also keeping in mind that even though I might have a written SOP, sometimes people don't learn that way, that the person who might be doing that task will want to see it in a video format.
Exactly. And I love that you are planning ahead for when you do have a bigger team. And I think it's so important to remember that all of us learn differently and we receive information differently. And so if you are able to have it in multiple formats like that, that just helps your future employees be that much more successful.
Yeah. And one thing you could consider is, here when I'm totally brainstorming, is putting it inside, like if you're a course creator and you have courses, you could create like a course, quote unquote, that has all your systems, right? It has the videos
Yes.
and everything in there so that as you onboard people, you can subscribe them to the course and it has each section of like, this is what we do when we get a new client. This is what we do after an event or after a project is completed. And so it's like it's kind of like a handbook, but it's just
exactly.
in a
video
format. So
yeah, which I actually think pairing video with text is proven to be very effective because people hear it, they see it, and then if you have some piece where they have to actually write something down, that adds another layer of information intake, and so they're able to remember all of those processes a lot better by having it all those different ways and getting that information all together. Even if you don't have a course software, you can do this with Asana or Trello. Just create a board or a project specifically for your employee handbook or team handbook, and just drop in all those things. Create like, okay, these are the ones you need to listen to first. These are the ones you need to listen to second.
Yeah.
Or even by parts of the business so they can learn as they go. And it's a great reference later. Like, let's say you are a wedding planner and you bring on some interns for the summer and they work on one really big wedding, but then like maybe in July they have just a day of. They can go back and look at, okay, this is what we do for day of. And you don't even have to be there and handhold because you have all that information right there. They can go learn it and go execute.
And they know where to look for it. So they don't have to ask you.
Exactly.
Love it. I feel like we could talk about this all day.
Oh my gosh. And we have before. So.
And we have. So before we wrap up, where can people learn more about you? Where can they get in touch with you? Kind of Tell us, if they want to work with you or learn from you, where do they get all those details?
Yeah, so the best way to start conversations with me is over on Instagram. I'm at Chelsea B. Foster. That's where I hang out pretty much all day. If you're interested in working with me, I actually have a membership program. It's called the Empowered Boss Lab, and that is the best way to get on my radar for working with me one-on-one. And then if you are interested in one-on-one services, you can head over to my website and fill out the contact form there. That is chelseabfoster.com or the empoweredbosslab.com.
And you have a podcast, right?
Oh, yeah, and I do have a podcast. Thank you. It's called the Burnout Proof Your Biz podcast. It's still kind of new, so I keep forgetting to talk about it.
Yeah, I know. Whenever you do these kind of elevator things, pitches or whatever, you forget oh yeah, I need to mention this and this. But
yes. But I do have a podcast, and it is all about helping you burnout proof your business. And you can listen to that on any podcast app, or you can listen to it on the web at burnoutproofyourbiz.com.
Wow, you have so many websites.
I do. I like a website for everything.
You like it organized.
Exactly.
You're so funny. Anyway, well, thank you, Chelsea, for being here and sharing your wisdom with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to my conversation with Chelsea. One of my biggest takeaways is how important it is to do what works for you. And it might just take a while for you to figure out what that looks like. So this is so true in everything in business and in life. I always say, you just do you. So what was your biggest takeaway? Head on over to my Instagram at Annette Stepanyan and let me know. I'm going to catch you back here next week for a brand new episode. Now, this is one you're not going to want to miss because I've got some really, really amazing entrepreneurs giving you advice about what you need to be thinking about if you want to up-level your business in the coming year. So I'll see you back here next week. Talk to you soon.